It came from nowhere, a silent shard of something ancient, older than the sun, more mysterious than anything we've ever mapped. It wasn't orbiting our star. It wasn't from any known comet belt or asteroid field. It was just suddenly here, moving fast, tumbling through space with a speed and angle that didn't make sense. Not a visit, not a return, but a pass-through, the first of its kind, something from beyond. And no one saw it coming. It didn't shine, it didn't pulse. There was no tail, no glow, no heat. But it had a name, ʻOumuamua, Hawaiian for scout. As if even the astronomers who named it could feel the unease, the possibility, the implied purpose. A messenger, maybe. A fragment, a clue. Something left adrift from another star system, older than our calendars, stranger than our science. And for a brief, breathless moment, it slipped into our skies, and then vanished forever. And the questions haven't stopped since. Welcome to Skybound Minds, where we don't just stare at the stars, we chase the stories hiding in their shadows. If you're someone who can feel the pull of the cosmos, who wants to understand the impossible, then you belong here. Subscribe, like, and tell us in the comments which country and city you're watching from. We're building a constellation of curious minds, all orbiting the same fascination. Because tonight, we're diving into the event that shook astronomy, the moment an interstellar object crossed the threshold of our solar system and left behind more mystery than answers. It was October 19, 2017, when a telescope in Hawaii caught the faint glint of something unusual. The Pan-STARRS 1 observatory, scanning the skies for potentially dangerous near-Earth objects, flagged a fast-moving point of light. At first, astronomers assumed it was a familiar visitor, an asteroid, a wayward comet, something local, explainable. But as the data sharpened, the trajectory told a different story. It wasn't following the pattern of anything from our solar system. It wasn't orbiting the sun, it was escaping it. The object had entered from above the plane of the solar system, curved around the sun, and was on its way out before anyone had even noticed it was there. What stunned researchers most wasn't just its speed, though it moved at nearly 315,000 kilometers per hour. It was its origin. When the calculations were complete, it became clear this was the first known object ever observed to come from outside our solar system, a true interstellar traveler, something that had journeyed, potentially for hundreds of millions of years, through the icy darkness between stars, only to brush past our small system in a blink. And its behavior was baffling. Most asteroids tumble slowly, gently, like drifting pebbles. Oumuamua spun erratically, wobbling like a bottle tossed into the sea. Its brightness fluctuated in irregular intervals, as if it were flat like a pancake or a sail rather. The rounded, rocky shapes were used to. Even its acceleration was strange. After it passed the sun, it sped up slightly, without the visible outgassing of a comet, the jets of vapor that usually push icy objects away from the sun's heat. There was no visible tail, no signature, nothing we could trace, just motion defiant and unexplained. Speculation ignited like dry leaves in wind. Was it a comet with unusual composition? An asteroid from a shattered exoplanet? A sliver of alien technology drifting aimlessly? A relic from a lost civilization? Harvard astronomer Avi Loeb made headlines when he suggested the possibility that ʻOumuamua might be artificial, not because he wanted headlines, but because the physics demanded explanation. It behaved unlike any natural object we'd ever seen. And when you eliminate every known possibility, what remains, no matter how extraordinary, has to be considered. Still, most of the scientific community resisted the idea. They leaned toward icy fragment, dark comet, maybe a brittle carbon-rich object from the outskirts of some ancient solar system. But even then, nothing added up. Its lack of thermal emission, its unusual shape, its unexplained boost in speed, and then it was gone, already moving fast when it was detected. Oumuamua spent only 11 days within range of our most powerful instruments before it faded into the black. Beyond the reach of telescopes, into the silence of deep space, we had no chance to redirect probes, no time to chase it, no warning to prepare, just a narrow window of awe and confusion, a single footprint in the snow. And now, all that remains is the math, the measurements, the questions, and the growing realization that our solar system may not be as isolated as we thought. Because if one object like this slipped through unnoticed, how many others have passed unseen, undocumented, unlabeled? And how many more are coming? Some astronomers described it like a leaf in the wind, fluttering, tumbling, unpredictable. Others saw it as a puzzle, a code written in speed and silence. Oumuamua didn't just pass through space, it behaved like it had a purpose. That's what shook people, not because it looked artificial, but because it looked intentional. Natural objects don't usually choose such specific paths. This one seemed to. It came in at just the right angle, skimmed the sun in a gravity-assisted arc, and then vanished in a clean trajectory back into the stars. And if it hadn't happened in front of our instruments, we wouldn't believe it ever existed. The shape became the obsession. Based on its reflected light pattern, it couldn't have been spherical. It had to be highly elongated, either cigar-shaped or disc-like, depending on the analysis. A tumbling cylinder, a shattered shard of something larger, a piece of space junk from another civilization. The truth is, we never got a photo. All we have are light curves, variations in brightness as it spun. From those curves, we paint theories, educated guesses, but they all rest on shadows, not substance. Then came the models. Scientists ran simulations backward in time, trying to find where it came from. But space is chaotic, and interstellar drift blurs memory. They traced its path to a region near the constellation Lyra, but nothing definitive. No obvious home star, no origin, just endless space, like it had been wandering for eons, detached from its maker, aimless or exiled. Perhaps it was ejected during the violent birth of a planetary system, or maybe it had been flung outward by a passing black hole, ripped from its orbit and sentenced to drift. What no one could answer was, why now? Why, after billions of years of silence, did an interstellar object finally pass through when we had just invented the tools to see it? Had others passed before, undetected in the blindness of history? Or was this one unique, not just the first we saw, but the first that came here? And if it came, could others follow? The mystery deepened in 2019 when another interstellar object appeared. This time, it was unmistakably a comet. It glowed, it outgassed, it behaved like a visitor we recognized. Named Tuai Borisov, it traced a clean hyperbolic orbit, just like ʻOumuamua, entering and exiting the solar system with cosmic precision. But Borisov followed expectations. ʻOumuamua broke them. And now, we had a pattern, not just a one-off, not a fluke, but two distinct objects, in 2 years, from two different directions, both interstellar, both captured in time, which meant something even more shocking than aliens. It meant interstellar visitors may be common. The space between stars isn't as empty as we thought. Imagine that. A cosmic highway of debris and objects and fragments drifting silently from one system to another. Thousands, maybe millions of relics from other worlds, all moving in their own forgotten directions. Some might be ice, some might be metal, some might be more. And every once in a while, one just happens to drift through us. We had always believed that our solar system was a closed system, protected by distance, locked in its own gravity. But now, we know better. We are not alone in space. We are not shielded. We are a stop on a map we didn't know existed, and we've only just noticed. The traffic. The universe is not still. We imagine it that way, silent, frozen stars hanging in black velvet. But nothing in space remains motionless. Everything moves. Planets orbit. Stars drift. Galaxies spin. And in between, things wander, unbound, alone. Sometimes old, broken pieces of something larger. Sometimes the survivors of ancient collisions, and sometimes something else entirely. That's what ʻOumuamua showed us. Not just that things exist out there beyond the map, but that they arrive, that they find us, that we, on our pale blue dot, are not as isolated as we once believed. It's a strange reversal of roles. For centuries, we've looked outward, sending probes, launching signals, dreaming of travel to other stars. But perhaps the stars come to us. Perhaps the visitors aren't spacecraft or radio messages, but rocks, comets, silent ambassadors that carry within them the history of places we'll never reach. What if ʻOumuamua was more than an object? What if it was a message, written not in words, but in motion? Not something sent, but something released. A relic of an ancient system, flung into space when its sun collapsed, or its planets were torn apart. A piece of cosmic wreckage, now, orbitless, historyless, drifting through civilizations it will never know. We want answers, we always do, but maybe the most honest thing we can say is, we don't know. And that's the beauty of it, because in astronomy, mystery is not a failure, it's a beginning. Every time we admit we don't understand, the sky gets deeper, the questions get sharper, and our sense of wonder expands. The fact that we can't explain ʻOumuamua completely, that's not frustrating. It's exhilarating, because it means something is happening that we haven't yet grasped. It also means we need to prepare. The next interstellar object won't wait for us. It won't slow down or swing closer. It will appear suddenly, just like the last one. And if we're not ready, we'll miss it again. But this time, we're paying attention. NASA and ESA are now planning interceptor missions, probes that can launch on short notice, chase down future objects like ʻOumuamua, and meet them in space. They may sit in dormant orbit for years, waiting, watching, and when the alert comes, they'll ignite, fly, intercept, because the next object might not just be a rock. It might be something with chemistry, with structure, with memory. Something we can touch, and if we can touch it, maybe we can learn something no telescope can ever reveal. A sample from beyond our solar system, a fragment of another world, a physical piece of the beyond. And when we hold that in our hands, when we analyze its dust, its minerals, its secrets, we won't just be learning about where it came from, we'll be learning about what else is possible. If a rock from another star system enters ours, it doesn't just travel across space. It crosses thresholds of science, of belief, of imagination. Because the truth is, most of what we know about the universe has come from light, from photons arriving after thousands, even billions of years. We read spectra, we study wavelengths, we interpret echoes, but when an object like ʻOumuamua passes through, it's not just light, it's matter, it's touchable history. Imagine what that means, a rock forged in the furnace of a star we've never seen, orbiting a planet that might no longer exist, ejected by a gravitational catastrophe a billion years before Earth grew its first moss, now drifting into our sky, as if to remind us that the universe is far older, far stranger, and far more alive than we have ever allowed ourselves to believe. And yet we almost missed it. The fact that we detected ʻOumuamua at all was a stroke of luck, a telescope scanning a narrow section of the sky, a glimmer caught at the edge of resolution. If it had passed by a week earlier or later, at a slightly different angle, it would have slipped past us like a whisper. That realization haunts astronomers. How many others have we missed? How many interstellar travelers have already passed through, silent and unseen, while we looked the other way? That's the driving force now, not fear, but urgency. A growing movement in the scientific community to watch the sky not just for threats but for messages in motion. Not because we expect to find aliens, but because something alien might already be drifting through us, in the form of forgotten fragments. Every system ejects debris. Every cosmic collision sends shards into the void. In the early days of a planetary system's formation, when gravity wrestles violently with mass, when orbits fight for stability, countless worlds are formed, shattered, and lost. The pieces are flung in all directions, and some of those pieces wander forever. We are surrounded by them, cosmic castaways, lost memories of systems that never knew our name, and once in a while, one finds us. We often say the universe is silent, but what if it's not? What if it speaks not in sound, but in arrivals, in visitors we never invited, in objects that don't belong here, yet pass through just long enough to be noticed and forgotten? What if we're listening to the wrong language? We send radio signals, we look for megastructures, but maybe, just maybe, the real evidence of life out there isn't light, it's leftovers, pieces, relics, things once touched by hands, now drifting endlessly between stars. And maybe that's all we'll ever find. Not a message that says hello, but one that says, we were here. The more we search the stars, the more we discover how little we understand about our own place among them. ʻOumuamua wasn't just a visitor, it was a mirror, not one that reflects our appearance, but one that reflects our assumptions. We thought we had mapped the rules of space, what can exist, how it moves, what belongs. But the arrival of an interstellar object shattered that map. It reminded us that the universe doesn't care about our categories. It creates, it collides, it forgets, and sometimes it delivers a message in the form of a mystery, because when something from another star system appears, it does more than defy our science, it reshapes our imagination. We suddenly ask, what else is out there? What else is coming? Could a world like Earth eject its own fragments, one day carrying pieces of our atmosphere, our oceans, our machines into the abyss. And what if it's already happened? What if ʻOumuamua isn't the first? What if it's not even the most remarkable? Maybe it's just the first one we saw. Maybe, floating far beyond the reach of our instruments, there are other objects, ones that hold more than stone. Maybe one of them carries a message, encoded in its minerals or geometry, or a structure, no longer functional, but unmistakably intentional. Maybe something has passed through, not to visit, but to observe. And maybe we are now being observed. In return, there's a quiet tension in that idea, a shiver at the edge of thought, because the more you think about it, the more it makes sense. If intelligent civilizations exist, then, if they are to face the destruction of worlds, the death of stars, they might send pieces of themselves outward, not as communication, not as conquest, but as legacy, a way to outlive their own extinction. A record of existence so durable, so small, it could survive longer than any light. Not a probe, not a signal, but a stone drifting, waiting. Eventually, perhaps, even we will do the same, launching fragments of our planet into the cosmos, relics of a species that loved, built, fought, dreamed, and maybe, one day, a distant civilization will detect that fragment, and they too will wonder, who sent this? What did they hope we'd understand? Because that's what ʻOumuamua left us with, not proof of aliens, but something more powerful, a question, a reminder that the universe is not just a space to explore. It is a story we are still learning to read, and every strange object that passes through is not an interruption, it is a new chapter. So we look up, again, wiser, humbled, changed, not because we found answers, but because we found something that refuses to be explained, something that crossed the emptiness between stars, passed silently through our skies, and vanished before we could understand it. In that fleeting encounter, it gave us a gift far greater than certainty, gave us wonder, real wonder, the kind that opens questions you can't let go of, that lingers in the back of your mind, whispering, there's more. ʻOumuamua may be gone, but what it started, what it awakened, will echo for generations. We are now watchers of the sky, in a new way, not just looking for threats, not just for beauty, but for visitors, for clues, for the pieces of a cosmic puzzle scattered across galaxies, drifting toward us, one shard at a time. And somewhere, out there, another object is coming. It's already moving, already on its way. And this time, we'll be ready.